Good day, folks. This is Greg Judy at Green Pastures Farm. Today's topic is what's it take to run and manage and set up and operate a successful grass grazing operation. So we're talking about an operation that depends 100% solely on forage. And when I'm talking forage, I'm talking about the stuff that's growing out of the land right here, without any added inputs. So whatever's here, this is what's been growing here for thousands of years. We haven't done anything, just bring animals onto this property and rotate. So what's it take, if you're starting with a piece of rough land, what are the steps that a person would want to take to get to this point where we're at right now? And let me explain a little bit. We're in central Missouri, which is central part of the United States. We're in a 38 to 40 inch rainfall area. So we get enough precipitation most years that we're going to grow something. And some years we may not grow as much as we like. And other years we may get more rain than we like. But we don't irrigate. We don't till. We don't have any tillage equipment. The only tillage equipment we have are these animals and their feet. See, the feet on these cows, and we have a flock of sheep as well, they've got a clove hoof, they're pointed, and every time that cow steps on that ground, she's bruising the soil. See that? Right there where she just stepped. Move out, girl. Right here. She just bruised that soil right there. And she busted some of that organic matter down on top of the ground. Hey, honey. You're checking me out, aren't you? So that's what we're trying to do. But to set that up, you've got to have several things going for you. One is you don't have to have the best land, but you do have to have control of the animals. So you got to have a good perimeter fence, and then you got to have some source of electric fence out there. You can't do it with barbed wire. Honey, you are just a pest. But anyway, what we're doing is we're getting the fence secure around the property, your property line, and then we run electric high tensile fence around the perimeter inside as an offset on a lot of the farms, or we'll run wire down the middle to split the farm in two, and that's our power source. So if you've got a really good fence, don't tear it out. Just get electric out there. You've got to have electric fence to do what we're doing here. You've got to rotate your animals. You've got to have some water. Animals are, 78 to 80% water, so you've got to have a good water source for them. If you've got a pond that's kind of questionable and it's kind of black and murky, I wouldn't call that a water source. I would, work on getting you some quality water. It shouldn't stink. The water shouldn't be muddy. In other words, an animal shouldn't be forced to walk into mud to get a drink of water. Because some of the older animals can get stuck in those areas, and now you've lost an animal. We're not about that. You can't set up a successful operation unless you have good water. The next thing that I would look at, if I was just starting out, is I would get animals that are adapted to grazing. Even if you can't find very many of them, if you can get small operation, if you can just get 3 to 5 or just something to start with. Get animals that can stay fat on forage, and they know how to forage. A lot of these bigger animals, they're kind of spoiled. They're used to being fed grain, and when you get in the wintertime and it's cold, if they don't get grain, they're going to get thin, and they'll get so thin that they don't breed back. So you got to make sure our animals stay robust. Now, these animals are robust. Look at that. I mean, she's got a calf sucking on her, and she's that kind of shape. That's what you want, folks. And so starting out, those of y'all don't know anything about livestock, remember this. You don't want a lot of air underneath the belly. You want that belly to be as close to that ground as you can. If you got a lot of leg, a long length of leg on that cow, that's going to be a high maintenance animal, and she's not going to make you any money. Not on grass. Now, if you're a grain farmer and you got tons of grain that's free, and you got a long-legged animal, she'll eat it, and she'll probably stay in good condition. because you're forcing energy, not forcing it, you're giving it to her, she's eating it, but you're giving her energy, a high form of concentrate, and they can stay pretty good shape with grain. But folks, there's no money in ruminant production when you got to feed animals grain. Now, if you got a hobby and you just want to feed them grain and make them look nice and slick and fat, that's fine. But we're talking about a sustainable, regenerative grazing operation here, where we're going to make a living on the land. I guess at the smallest side of that scale, you can have 3 or 4 cows, and that's just your family meat. I talked to so many people, just 2 yesterday, and they're both concerned about their health. Like, Greg, we got allergies, and we know stuff that we're eating. We're eating this junk food. It doesn't have any nutrients in it, and we want to raise healthy food. And we don't want our kids to grow up with allergies and all the other stuff you read about. Yeah. I remember when I was in high school, folks, there was one girl in our whole high school that had diabetes. One. Everybody knew who she was. It was a really, strange thing to have one without. Now everybody, what is it? 1 in 6? Something like that. Some crazy number. I mean, there's an epidemic of diabetes going through our society now. It's because of what we're eating. We need to get back to nutrient-dense food that's grown from the land without any chemicals. We keep hearing, oh, it's good for you. Those chemicals aren't hurting you. Yeah, they are. If they'll kill forage when you pour it on them, what do you think you do when you eat that? You're putting all this glyphosate on our food, and then we combine it or mill it, grind it into whatever. It ends up in our food. That stuff, that residue's still there. A lot of it is, and we're eating that. It's not good. But to get to the really, to run a really good operation where you're not dependent on buying a lot of things to keep your animals, folks, you got to have enough land base to make a full rotation around your farm. And what you started grazing on your first pass, when you come back to that, and I don't know how many days it is, you'll learn to read that from the land. If you watch some videos, you can tell when the plants are recovered. You got to have enough time in your rotation that your plants are recovered before you come back. And if they're not, what you're doing and what you're setting up is not going to work. You're going to end up spending a lot of money on hay. You're going to feed way too much supplements, and your animals are not going to do very well. Your land's not going to do very well because you're coming back too soon. You're grazing it all off like a golf course, and there's no money. There's nothing left for you at the end of the day. You have a compromised product that you've raised. You've destroyed your land base, and you're disappointed. So make sure when you start out, you don't get overstocked. And you can find out what your stocking rate is from your local NRCS office for your county. Go find out what it is. And that's a good place to start. You can probably run more than that over time, but starting out, that's what I would start with. I see so many people get too many animals on too small of an acreage, and they don't realize these are big animals. They take a lot of forage. They can eat a lot of forage. But it's all grown free for the sunlight. Sunlight, we didn't, this had nothing put on it. There's never been any fertilizer. You couldn't get a fertilizer truck up here. You can turn it over if you tried to go on the side of that hill there. So the only fertilizer it's getting is just coming out of the back of these cows and bulls. So it's happened for thousands of years, and I get tickled, and these people, oh, we got to get rid of all these animals. If we get rid of these animals, folks, we are all in a world of hurt. You will never, ever, ever heal all this bare ground we have in the world without ruminants on it. You can't do it. And if you're not concerned yet, wait till you see what fertilizer prices are next spring. There's already rumors they're going to be at 400%. 400%. Now, how's that going to work? You know, you're getting $4.50 a bushel for corn, and you were given, you know, a set amount for fertilizer. Now it's going to go up 4 times. That's not going to work very well without a lot of government intervention of subsidies paid to the farmers to keep them in business, when we could be doing this. I'm not taking any subsidies from anybody. And we're putting carbon back into the soil. So to start out, if you all just want to get started, get you know, 20-acre piece, whatever, 10-acre piece, 5-acre piece. You got deep pockets, 100 acres, whatever. Make sure you set it up in an area where you get rainfall. Don't go to a desert and try and do what I'm doing right here. You got to have rain. You got to have moisture. And if you go to a desert, a lot of the people that are in deserts, they've got irrigation pivots. That's not sustainable at all. We're finding that out. The wells they're drawing out of are going dry. A lot of the households in those areas are now pumping mud instead of water. It's because all the water's being pumped out on top of the ground. It doesn't make sense to grow crops in a desert. It just doesn't. But it's being done. I'll get off of that soapbox. But this is where it's at, folks. It's ruminants on land that you could put any other person out here on the side of this ridge. You and I, a whole group of us, could go across this ridge. You could lock us in here for a day, and we would starve. We wouldn't starve, but we wouldn't have much to eat. I mean, there's just nothing out here that you can eat. But these animals they're happy out here. They're taking this vegetation that was grown by sunlight, and they're turning it into a valuable protein that you and I can eat to stay healthy. Our kids can stay healthy. Our communities can be healthy. We can sell these to our neighbors. And it's all being done without fossil fuel. Folks, we got to wake up. We got to wake up. We can't keep farming the way and ranching the way we've been doing. We just can't. There's too many people against us now. I mean, you go in the European Union, look what's happening over in Europe. In New Zealand, they're starting to tax cows, you know. It's just a sad thing to see that uneducated people, it's mainly very highly educated people in universities that don't have a clue, and they're making the laws, you know, and then we have to live by them. So make sure you stand up for, you know, what's right. This is right, and you've got to be able to defend it. And I challenge anybody to come onto this farm and look at what we're doing here and tell us that this doesn't work. It absolutely does work. And we're making an excellent living doing this. We have a very high quality of life. We're bringing on interns, the next generation. We're teaching them. Then we're finding them places to go on, and they can do well too. So this is the wave of the future. It started, and it's gaining momentum, and I highly recommend that you become involved in some kind of way and promote this, whether it's with your food dollar, the next steak you eat, or the next hamburger. Don't get it from McDonald's. Don't get it from somebody that's doing grass-fed beef. Help them out. Help them stay on the land. Because that's what you're doing. Every mouthful that you eat, you can help a local farmer. And that's what we're all about. Folks, I'm going to sign off here. But those of you all just getting started, just remember some of those tips I gave you today. There'll be more following. But that's a pretty good place to start. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time down the road.